I swear, if I had walked in here 2 months earlier, this place wouldn't even be standing right now. But now it's mine, and I still don't know if that's a blessing or a problem. It started with a phone call I almost didn't pick up. Unknown number. I let it ring twice, then answered, and all I heard was, "Your uncle passed away, and he left you the cafe." I literally just stood there like, wait, what cafe? Because I didn't even know I had an uncle running a cafe. No one in my family ever talked about him, but apparently he owned this small spot on the edge of town, and now it was legally mine. So a few days later, I show up, and man, first thing I notice, the place looks like it's already dead. Faded sign outside, half-broken window, empty parking lot. Inside is even worse. 2 old tables, 1 broken coffee machine, lights flickering like they're tired of existing, and a smell like burnt coffee and lost dreams. Behind the counter is this old employee just staring at me like, "Oh, you're the new owner?" Like even he didn't believe it. I asked him, "Be honest, how bad is it?" He just laughed a little and said, "We barely survive lunch rush, and we don't get many of those anymore." That hit different because I checked the notebook they left behind. Numbers didn't lie. Debt, declining sales, almost no repeat customers. This place wasn't struggling. It was dying slowly. And somehow, it was my problem now. I remember sitting in one of those cracked chairs, looking around, thinking, I don't know anything about running a cafe, but I can't just let it die either. And that's when I realized something. If I wanted to save this place, I couldn't fix it. I had to completely rebuild it. And I had no idea where to even start.
I didn't sleep much that night. I just kept thinking about that cafe. The empty tables, the broken machine, that employee's face like he already accepted it was over. And me? I was sitting there with zero experience in a business that was basically on life support. Real talk, I could have just sold it, walk away clean. But something about that place stuck with me. So the next morning, I went back. Early. No customers, no noise, just me and that flickering sign outside. I brought a notebook and started treating it like a problem I had to solve. First thing I did, I just watched. I stood behind the counter and observed everything like I was trying to understand the system. When people did come in, it wasn't many, and they all did the same thing. Order something simple, sit for a few minutes, leave fast. No talking, no vibe, no reason to stay. That's when it hit me. This place wasn't just bad at coffee, it was bad at being a place people wanted to stay in. Later, I asked the employee, "Why do people leave so fast?" He shrugged like it was obvious. Nothing really keeps him here. That line stuck in my head because he was right. There was no reason to stay. No energy, no identity, no feeling, just coffee. And in 2026, that's not enough. People don't come back for coffee. They come back for experience, for feeling, for something they can't get anywhere else. So I wrote one sentence in my notebook. This place doesn't need better coffee. It needs a reason to exist. And that's when I started thinking, what if the problem wasn't the cafe? What if it was everything about how it was run?
I came back the next day with a completely different mindset. No more let's fix the coffee thinking. I was done playing small. If this place was going to survive, it needed a full reset. So I did something kind of crazy. I shut it down for a day. Just put a handwritten sign on the door. Closed for changes. Back soon. The employee looked at me like I lost my mind. He said, "Bro, we can't afford to close." And I just said, "Yeah, but we can't afford to stay the same either." Then I walked inside and started ripping the place apart, metaphorically, not literally. First thing I did was clear everything from the counter. Menu boards, old flyers, random clutter, gone. Then I sat down and asked the employee a simple question. If you had to describe this cafe in one word, what would it be? He thought for a second, then said, "Forgotten." That word hit harder than I expected, because he wasn't wrong. This place wasn't just failing, it was invisible.
so I wrote down a new direction. We don't sell coffee. We sell a reason to come back. Sounds simple, right? But I had no idea how to actually do it yet. So I started experimenting. I changed the menu first, cut everything down to just a few items. No confusing options, no we also have this random thing. Just clean, simple, intentional choices. Then I focused on the vibe. I moved tables closer together, cleaned up the lighting, added small details that didn't cost much but changed how it felt. But the biggest change? I told the employee, from now on, we talk to people. He laughed, like I was joking, but I wasn't, because I realized something important. People don't just remember what they buy, they remember how they were treated while buying it. And if this place was going to survive, we had to stop acting like a dying cafe and start acting like a place people actually wanted to be in.
The first day we reopened, I was nervous as hell. Not because I thought people wouldn't come, but because I wasn't sure if the changes were enough. Same street, same building, same sign, but inside, it felt different, cleaner, lighter, more alive. Still small, still struggling, but not dead anymore. We opened the doors at 9 a.m. First hour, nothing, just me and the employees standing around like idiots. Second hour, one person walked in, an older guy. He looked around like he didn't recognize the place. "I thought this cafe closed," he said, and I just smiled. Almost did. He ordered a coffee. Simple, nothing special. But here's the thing. We didn't just give him coffee. We talked to him. The employee actually asked him about his day. And the guy stayed. Longer than normal. Like way longer. Didn't just drink and leave. He sat there, relaxed, actually talking. When he finally left, he said, "Feels different in here today." That was the first win. Not money, not sales, just reaction. By lunchtime, we had more people than usual. Still not a lot, but more than barely surviving. And I started noticing something. People weren't just ordering. They were looking around, staying longer, even smiling a bit. It sounds small, but in a place like this, that's everything. That night, I checked the numbers. Slight increase in sales. Nothing crazy. But the real change wasn't on paper. It was in energy. And that's when I told myself, okay, this might actually work. But the problem with early success is it makes you think you figured it out. And I was about to find out how wrong that thinking can be. By the end of the first week, things were better. Not we're rich better. More like we're not dying today better. We had regulars starting to show up again. Same faces coming back 2, sometimes 3 times a week. And every time someone said, "This place feels different," it hit like fuel. So yeah, I got a little confident. Maybe too confident. Because I started thinking I understood it now. Like I cracked some kind of formula. Better vibe, simpler menu, actually talking to people. Boom, turnaround complete. But business doesn't stay simple for long. One morning I show up, and the employee is already there, looking stressed. He points at the receipt printer. No paper, again. Then he shows me the supplier invoice. Prices went up. Milk, coffee beans, everything. I'm looking at the numbers like, you're kidding. Because we were barely breaking even already. Now costs were climbing, and I realized something real fast. You can fix the vibe all you want, but if the math doesn't work, you still lose. That night, I stayed late alone in the cafe, just sitting there with a notebook trying to figure it out. How do you make this sustainable? More customers, higher prices, new products? Everything I wrote down either felt risky or wrong for the kind of place I wanted this to be. And that's when I hit the wall. Because improving the cafe was one thing, but turning it into a real, stable business, that was something else entirely. I remember leaning back in my chair thinking, maybe I just got lucky those first few days. And for the first time since I took over, I wasn't sure if I was actually saving this place or just delaying the moment it finally collapsed. The next morning, I almost didn't go in. Not because I was tired, because I didn't know what to do next. That's a different kind of problem. When you're broke, everything feels simple. You just need something to work.
But when you're kind of surviving, suddenly every decision matters, and I was stuck. When I finally walked into the cafe, the employee was already there again. Same routine, same tired face, but now there was tension in the air. He didn't even joke this time, just said, "We're running out of room. If this keeps going, we'll be in the red again." I nodded, but I already knew that. The numbers weren't lying. So I did something I hadn't done since day one. I stopped trying to fix things and started asking questions, real ones. I sat down with him and asked, "What do people actually come here for now?" He thought for a second, then said, "Honestly, the feeling. It's just calm here now." That word stuck again. Calm. Because it hit me. This place didn't become successful because of products. It became successful because of emotion. People weren't paying for coffee. They were paying for a pause in their day. So I started thinking differently. What if the goal wasn't to sell more, but to make each visit matter more? That's when I made a decision that felt risky. We weren't going to expand the menu. We were going to shrink it even more and raise the value of everything we already had. No cheap upgrades, no random new items, just fewer choices, done better, with intention. The employee wasn't convinced. He said, "If we cut more, people might leave." And I replied, "Or they might finally understand why they're here." That day, we changed everything again. And this time, I wasn't chasing growth. I was chasing clarity. But I didn't know yet that clarity can also expose problems you were avoiding the whole time.
The changes didn't hit instantly. That's the part nobody tells you. You don't fix a struggling business and suddenly see fireworks the next day. It's quiet, uncomfortable quiet. For the first couple days after we simplified everything again, traffic actually dipped a little. The employee looked at me like, "See, I told you." And I couldn't even argue yet, because on paper it looked worse. Fewer orders, less variety, more empty hours. But I kept watching something else. People who did come in stayed longer, talked more, ordered slower, like they weren't rushing anymore. And that's when I realized something important. We weren't building a fast cafe. We were building a repeat cafe. Then one afternoon, something changed. A group of students walked in, sat down, and didn't leave for almost 2 hours. They didn't even order that much, just coffee and conversation. Before leaving, one of them said, "Yo, this place feels like a break from everything outside." That line, that was it. That was the shift. Because suddenly, I wasn't guessing anymore. I understood what we were actually selling. So I made one last adjustment. We stopped thinking like a struggling cafe trying to survive and started thinking like a place people belong to. We built small routines, slow mornings, discount hours, a simple signature drink people associate with us, familiar faces remembered by name. Nothing expensive, nothing complicated, just connection. And slowly, it started working. Not overnight success, not viral growth, but steady, real, the kind that sticks. A few months later, we weren't just surviving anymore. We were stable. Not huge, not flashy, but alive. One night, after closing, I stood outside looking at the sign. Same building, same street, completely different outcome. The employee locked the door and said, "Crazy how close we were to shutting this place down." And I just nodded, because yeah, we were. And if I'm being honest, I didn't save a cafe. I just stopped it from being ignored. And somehow, that made all the difference.
Before you go, hit that like button and subscribe for more unbelievable stories just like this one. See you in the next story.